More history was made last night by Sidney Crosby, but how could we forget about Gino? Sidney Crosby continues to torch the Flyers, living up to his new nickname, the Fly Swatter, and the Penguins offense clicking on all cylinders with Sidney Crosby as the main facilitator. First and foremost, let's celebrate another Penguins victory, beating the Philadelphia Flyers, our arch rivals, and dang, does it feel good to beat up on those Flyers. Crosby being vintage once again with a 4-point performance. We have so much to talk about on today's episode of Penguins Digest. But first, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, 99.9% of you are not yet subscribed. And all of you that are watching these videos lately, you should know we are going nowhere. We will continue to cover the Pittsburgh Penguins. And if you're a Penguins fan, there's no better place than Penguins Digest. Let's jump right into it. First thing we have to talk about, for those of you Cobra Kai fans out there, strike first and strike hard, and you all know the rest. The Penguins never looked back after an unbelievable first period last night against the Flyers. They were cooking right out of the gate, even had a goal called back due to an offsides, but overall, the team just came out swinging yesterday. I love to see that aggressiveness that they put on display against their arch rivals. Obviously, they wanted to win that game bad, and it showed. From the puck drop, the Penguins were all over the Flyers. It only took 89 seconds for 87 to throw the first punch in this brawl. The first shot of the game resulted in a Penguins goal. Brian Rust on a one-timer, an absolute rocket by Rust, who has been so hot lately. He gets the Penguins on the board first, but then the Penguins just kept on rolling. Rickard Rakell, Michael Bunting, Philip Tomasino getting in on the action. This was the first game that the Penguins scored first in their last 7 games. They were on a 6-game streak of allowing the first goal. There was a mental error by Rickard Rakell being offside, getting a goal called back. That was a beautiful goal, by the way. And then Rakell redeemed himself by scoring the next goal for the Penguins. He gets them back on the board, going up 2-1, controlling the pace of the game. Lots of energy from the Penguins, and the team was buzzing like Michael Bunting, who is a guy we have to talk about later in this episode. He has been fantastic for the Penguins lately. But first, let's get to chapter 2, and that is the Fly Swatter strikes again. Sidney Crosby, we gave him that nickname yesterday, talking about his string of success over the course of his career against our hated rivals, the Philadelphia Flyers. He continued that last night, and I've already gotten plenty of responses from Flyers fans. They hate this nickname, which makes me love it even more. Sidney Crosby, the Fly Swatter. Once they start beating us, then they can talk. Right now, Pittsburgh, let's stay on it. Let's keep milking this nickname, the Fly Swatter, for Sidney Crosby, because did he earn it last night or what? Oh my Lord. I mean, this guy went absolutely bonkers last night. Sidney Crosby with another 4-point game for the Pens. 3 assists, tying Mario Lemieux for most assists in Pittsburgh Penguins history. And history is made every single night, it seems, with this team of legends. Crosby, Malkin, Letang, all probably first ballot Hall of Famers in my eyes. 3-time Stanley Cup champions, and just continue to climb the all-time charts. And in Pittsburgh Penguins history, their legacy is cemented among the GOATs. Crosby continuing to cement his legacy and add to his resume against the Flyers last night. 4 points. I mean, you can't say enough about this guy. What he's done over the course of his career, what he's done this season, 2 4-point games in his last 3 games. Philip Tomasino had a breakaway, got hooked badly, drew another penalty, another power play for Pittsburgh, and then Crosby sets him up on the back door. Successful power play for Pittsburgh. We're going to talk about the power play a little bit later in the episode as well. That was when the Penguins went up 4-1 in the first period. It was a first period to remember for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I mean, Crosby, Tomasino, Bunting, Malkin, everybody was contributing. It's so fun to watch this team when they're cooking with gas, and that is exactly what was going on last night. They did not hold back for 1 second, and I said it for you Cobra Kai fans out there: strike first, strike hard, and the third part of that is no mercy, and the Penguins did not let up last night in the third period, which I thought was very commendable. Second period, there was a little bit of a lull, and when you're that hot, it's bound to happen, but they were able to recover. They were able to go out there in the third period and push the envelope, pressing the envelope last night, continuing to keep their foot on the gas. Some sweet saves by Tristan Jarry, keeping them in the lead, keeping that 2-goal cushion. And then when that thing went to 1 goal, the Penguins just bang, floored it, and were able to just score some more. Put up 7 goals on Philly last night, a convincing victory by the Pens, and obviously Sidney Crosby a big reason why. But what I really want to talk about with Crosby isn't even his point production. It's how he is as a leader, and that's something we have to account for. His career has been storied. The stats speak for themselves, but what he's done off the ice and with his teammates is just as commendable as his performance on the ice. And he showed again last night why he wears the C for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Look at this tweet. Sidney Crosby decided to give the helmet to Ryan Graves. Ryan Graves gets the helmet last night. He has 0 points this season. He has struggled mightily over the last 2 seasons since he was signed by Kyle Dubas. He continued to struggle again last night, but arguably played one of his best games as a Penguin. So Sidney Crosby saw that he's been in and out of the lineup, saw that he's been struggling, and he pulled a Philadelphia Phillies fan base and decided, instead of booing Trey Turner, let's give him a standing ovation. So Sidney Crosby, instead of pulling down his teammate when he knows that his teammate is struggling, he has that leadership instinct to say, you know what, this guy's not feeling so good right now. He just got a healthy scratch out of the lineup last game. Let's give him some recognition for playing one of his best games as a Penguin, and that is exactly what Sid did. That is the type of thing that could turn around a guy's season, and we need Ryan Graves right now, because without Pettersson and Pickering, that left side is weak, and Ryan Graves is that third defenseman on that left side. He needs to play every single day for the Pens, barring any unforeseen trades by Kyle Dubas, which I'm all for, by the way. Ryan Graves is going to be in the lineup. So we need him to continue to produce, do what he does best. He doesn't need to score points. What Ryan Graves needs to do is make defensive plays. He made a couple yesterday, which ended up being a difference maker at the time. So Crosby acknowledged that. He said, you know what, Gravesy, you play one of your best games as a Penguin. We're going to acknowledge you. It doesn't matter if you're not on the score sheet. It doesn't matter if you're not one of these guys that, are scoring 2 or 3 points every single night. Bunting, Malkin, Ross, Raquel, all those guys were getting the helmet every other game, it seems, and that's what the tweet said. But Crosby noticed that Ryan Graves needed it more than anybody, and you could tell it meant a lot to him when Crosby handed him that. It was an emotional moment for Ryan Graves, and it's good to see players really have each other's backs and show that kind of leadership. Sidney Crosby is one of the very few leaders that I've seen do something like that, and that is an honorable act by Sid the Kid, continuing to show this guy might be one of the best players in National Hockey League history, but he's also one of the best leaders, and that doesn't get acknowledged nearly enough. But anyways, a great act by Sidney Crosby, possibly turning around Ryan Graves' season. Hopefully, for the Penguins' sake, that is the case. But let's move on to the next topic at hand, and that is pristine on the power play. A lot of those main contributors that you saw on the box score were guys that play on the power play, and the Penguins' power play was a perfect 3 for 3 last night against the Flyers, lighting the lamp 3 times. Even in an instance late in the game where there were only 17 seconds left, they still found a way to score on the power play. I mean, they put the 4th line out there on the power play late in the game. They still scored. So when you're hot, I would say. And the Penguins' power play was pristine last night. That's the only word I could really think of. Describing them last night. They were perfect. They were moving the puck around. They were getting opportunities, weren't turning it over. All the passes were pretty much crisp. A couple of odds and ends here and there they needed to tie up. But overall, compared to what they've looked like in the last few games, disastrous on the power play. Last night was a sight for sore eyes, because I'm telling you, that power play has looked dysfunctional for a majority of the season, and last night was probably one of their best games on the man advantage. You see it there, 3 for 3, including, like I said, the most impressive tally was late in the game with 20 seconds left in the game, less than 20 seconds left in the game. Noel Acciari won the faceoff to Ryan Shea, who banked it off the boards intentionally, and then Blake Lizotte pots it home for the Penguins' 7th goal of the night, cashing in 3 for 3 on the man advantage. But more importantly, we got to talk about Evgeni Malkin. He made Penguins history, becoming the 3rd player in Pittsburgh Penguins history to score 500 power play points. That is something we're celebrating. Obviously, Crosby's getting celebrated a lot for the history that he's making, tying Mario Lemieux's record for franchise assists. But Evgeni Malkin also moving his way up the ranks of the Penguins elite and the greatest Penguins of all time, becoming just the third to get 500 power play points. That is something seriously worth celebrating for Gino. We're here at Christmas time. You know, it's Christmas Eve. Tomorrow's Christmas. We should be celebrating, and that's what I'm here to do. This team is playing their best hockey of the season. We're going into the break hot, right on the edge of the playoff bubble, and feeling good about making a second half run here in 2025. I mean, this team is playing so well. They're all coming together. Little things like Crosby giving the helmet to Ryan Graves. Little things like Michael Bunting being one of the key contributors for the Penguins, a guy that struggled mightily at the beginning of the year, but has turned it on over the last month and a half. We have to talk about that guy, and that's what I'm going to talk about next. Michael Bunting is home. This guy deserves so much recognition for the way he's played. I criticized this guy so much at the beginning of the season. Last year, towards the end, whenever Jake Guentzel got traded away, Bunting was one of the main reasons why the Penguins almost made it into the playoffs. They almost squeaked in, and Michael Bunting was that spark that they needed. But this season, when the season started, I thought Bunting was one of the worst players on the ice. That's just me. He did not look good at all for a long time. And then when he turned it on, he turned it on. And this guy has been one of the main reasons the Penguins have been so successful lately. He has been scoring goals like crazy. Michael Bunting is continuing to contribute in any way that he possibly can to help this team win. He's doing the dirty work, just everything that you need your guy to do. Playing on the line with Evgeni Malkin is not something we take lightly here in Pittsburgh. We need effective wingers in that top six, and Michael Bunting has done just that for Pittsburgh. Look at the numbers. 18 points in 35 games, but most of those points have come recently for Michael Bunting. He has been on an absolute heater for like a month and a half, it seems, at this point. He is being rewarded for his hard work. He's going out there and playing his heart out. You've seen a change in the tide for Michael Bunting's season, and since that switch flipped, he has been one of probably the top 5 players on this team. And if he continues to do that, that's going to be an X factor down the stretch for the Pens, because they don't have to rely on the big guns if Michael Bunting is helping out in the goal department. He's almost a double-digit goals, and we're not even halfway through the season. So you're looking at a 20-goal campaign, especially the meaningful goals that he has scored. You saw the game winners that he's been able to tally. A goal against Toronto, his former team, that was huge for the Pens. He's just been there in the right place at the right time, getting rewarded for his hard work. Sid as well, being rewarded for his hard work. Ryan Graves getting that helmet, though, I can't get over that. That act by Sidney Crosby. You could easily give it to Bunting. You could give it to Rusty. You could give it to Raquel, but you give it to Ryan Graves. And I do think that is a vote of confidence from Sidney Crosby saying, dude, we need you. I understand you've been struggling ever since you got here, but if you can play like the Ryan Graves that played in New Jersey for the Devils, the one that we signed to that big contract, you're going to help us a heck of a lot. And that's really what it's all about. Picking up your teammates when they're down. That's what Sid has done. Gino making history, Sid making history, Bunting on a heater, the Penguins on a heater, Tristan Jarry making some key saves, Brian Rust, holy moly, can't say enough about that guy. He has been terrific on an absolute monster stretch, has Brian Rust been. Those first 2 lines really clicking for the Pens, top 6 wingers. Bunting, Rust, Raquel, all doing their thing. And then that 4th line, Blake Kazat, Noel Acciari, and Matt Nieto being rewarded with power play minutes. Mike Sullivan late in the game. Go out there and get us another one. And they did, continuing their hot stretch. I talked about them being a pressure cooker on the last episode of Penguins Digest, and that continued. So plenty of good things taken into the holiday break here on Penguins Digest. Our boys are looking fantastic. Hopefully that continues. Got the win over Philly. Feels a little bit better beating Philly than any other team, I would say. So let's continue to wave the terrible towels heading into this weekend. Penguins and Steelers, big games coming up. Steelers are going to be playing against the Kansas City Chiefs tomorrow. Obviously, we tuned into that, as the Penguins aren't going to have a game until Saturday against the New York Islanders. But we'll be back on Friday with another video here for Penguins Digest, talking about a back-to-back against the New York Islanders on Saturday and Sunday. A lot to talk about there, but for now, let's enjoy our holiday break. Merry Christmas, all of you guys. Thank you so much for watching the channel. Penguins got another win. I can't stop waving the terrible towel, honestly. But Penguins got another huge win against the Flyers. We're feeling good going into this break. Let's just take the time to rest. Let's appreciate what this team has done over the last stretch and hopefully carry that momentum into the second half of the season. Thank you guys for tuning in to Penguins Digest. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you on the next episode.